Welcome into episode 386 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Bridget Prue here with Scott McLaughlin. Brian was very engaged on Twitter during the game, but it is New Year's Eve and he did have to go do something right after. I don't know about you, Scott. I am also going somewhere after as soon as we post this, having a good night. I think you're staying in, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere. Going out on New Year's Eve is like it was cool for a while in my early 20s, and I feel like it's just an absolute nightmare now. Like
Wait, you're
I'm
not in
I'm
your early
I'm good.
20s?
I'm good with like just going to someone's house and hanging out, but zero interest in going out. I can guarantee I will not make it to midnight. So I'm old and boring now.
Are you telling me you're not 21?
Also, there's so this is gonna. I think this game will have already happened by the time we drop this, but there's also USA Canada World Junior game. Like that's all I need.
Yeah, I will be watching that too, trying to. A lot of college football too, right? There's a lot going on,
There
but
is a college football playoff game. Winter Classic, I think like the least interesting Winter Classic
yeah.
ever. Again, by the time people listen to this, that game already happened, but
True.
maybe it turned out to be the best Winter Classic ever.
Yeah, maybe we just aren't predicting the future very well. But
Mm.
anyway, hope everybody has a great new year slash had a great new year, depending on when you're listening to this. We'll get into the Bruins Capitals game. So the Bruins finish out 2024 on the road. 12:30 puck drop, a little bit after that, I guess, but 12:30 puck drop in the Capital. And I guess we'll just go right to our opening shifts. Scott, I think you should go first because it was a 3-1 loss, but it was a close game. And just what were your takeaways?
Yeah, so my overarching takeaway from this game is that it was actually a good hockey game. 12:30 games sometimes aren't. This game, could have just kind of been two teams going through the motions. I thought there was good intensity early on. Bruins had control early. Capitals take control as the first period goes on. Capitals were probably better in the second period. Bruins didn't really make enough of a push, but then they did in the third. And it's a one-goal game. It's not 3-1 until a late empty netter. So, um, yeah, I think like obviously we are always going to look for issues in a loss, and there's one big one in this one that I know you'll get to, Bridget, on the power play. But yeah, overall though, I thought the Bruins played well. Like you got, I think we all knew that when the Bruins beat the Capitals last week, right before the Christmas break, you didn't get the Capitals' best effort. They were on the second night of a back to back. Like it was a good win for the Bruins. I don't want to take anything away from it, but you knew if you've watched the Washington Capitals this season and you watched that game in Boston last week, you knew that was not even close to the Capitals' best game. I thought you got something much closer to the Capitals' best game on Monday, whatever today, Tuesday. What day is it, Bridget?
It's Tuesday.
The holidays, like, don't the holidays like throw you off so much? It's like nothing makes sense like these 2 weeks for like Christmas and New Year's.
No, I referenced my calendar like 3 times already today
Yeah.
to see what it was.
Yeah. So I think you got a much better effort from the Capitals, and you pretty much went toe to toe with them at 5-on-5. I think the Bruins were probably the better team. But you come up short. There's obviously some concerns offensively there. Capitals had to block a ton of shots. Ended up with 30 blocks. So, like that takes commitment, that takes effort. I just like, I'm not super concerned about this loss. In fact, I might actually even be a little bit encouraged that you went toe to toe with one of the best teams in the league playing, if not like their A game, at least a B plus, A- game.
Yeah, and I mean they had Ovechkin back this time. So I'm not that he had two decent chances on the power play. Other than that, pretty quiet, which he's just coming back from injury. But either way, he's back in the lineup, makes the lineup better. But yeah, they really had some pushes. I think the third period was encouraging. The energy was still there. But my opening shift, which is what you alluded to as still being probably the biggest concern, is special teams, in particular the power play. After last game in Columbus, Sacco decided to, or I guess in last game in Columbus was the first game Sacco decided to split the top unit kind of into two groups, and stuck with a similar look today against Washington. So the units were Pasta, Geeky, Brazo, Zaka, and Lorai, and then the second unit was Marchand, Coyle, McAvoy, Frederick, and Elias Lindholm. And we last episode talked about what the merits would be for that, like what we thought might change, what could be a successful formula. We thought, hey, maybe Brazo and Pastrnak on the same unit, like playing net front, could be good. Well, the units did not look great. They just made a lot of sloppy mistakes. It wasn't even that like the personnel was like not meshing as much. It was like it just seemed like mistake after mistake, pucks getting cleared really easily and quickly. Sometimes the Capitals ended up on the offensive during the Bruins power plays today, especially the second one was really bad. And it just seems like a confidence thing still, which, it's been the whole season, right? Like, I don't know if there's a stretch, Scott, you can think of where it was like, okay, the Bruins put together 3 straight games where the power play was doing really well.
Yeah, like maybe one stretch. I would have to go through and look, but yeah, I mean it's a good place to start because it was ultimately special teams was the difference in this game, as it has been too many times for the Bruins this year. And I thought both of the Bruins power plays came in the second period. I thought the first one they had a couple decent looks, not enough great ones, but like that power play at least didn't kill momentum. The second one did, and they get it with 4:49 left in the second period. You're down 2-1. It's like here is a golden opportunity to, obviously to tie the game, ideally, but at least to build some momentum going into the second intermission. And instead, it was just like an abject disaster. I mean, early on, they get over the line, and Brazo has the puck and just like clumsily kind of fumbles it away. Like, just didn't look focused. Cut, a little late on the power play. Zaka's coming up the ice after Capitals like had offensive zone time on this power play, which shows you just how much of a disaster it was. But they escaped some pressure, and Zaka's coming back up the ice, and he's just like gliding through the neutral zone. And it's like, did you remember that there were penalty killers behind you? Like, the Capitals just had the puck in the offensive zone. Those guys are now coming back up ice with you. And he just gets his pocket picked. Like, just zero awareness that there was someone chasing him from behind. And it's like, how does that happen? Like, it's just such a lack of focus, energy, intensity, and just zero confidence across the board. Like, these guys just look like they it's like they know that they're gonna fail, and that's like in their head. And I don't know how you snap out of that. Obviously, Sacco has tried to change up the units, as you mentioned, which I think you had to do. Like, you couldn't keep that top unit together any longer, really. But it goes beyond personnel. Like, it's a mindset. It's an effort thing. They just get outworked. They look like they have zero confidence. It's like they just know that this is going to go wrong, and we're not going to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. And like I said, I just don't know how you shake them out of that.
Yeah, especially since we're how many games into the season? We've had 2 different coaches. We've tried every like combination that you could think of, and it just never seems to be able to string together a very long stretch of like not even talking about scoring, just like in general, like passing looks crisp and looks are good and you're seeing like fundamentally right things. Like there just has not been a consistent uh it hasn't been consistent this year. It continued to be a problem against Washington. And the Bruins and the Capitals do play one more time back at home in April. In a stretch of the season where, depending on how things go here in the next month, like could be really important for the Bruins. Another game against the Capitals. They have, depending on how close they are in the playoff picture, they could be the Bruins could be fighting for a spot, or the Capitals maybe could be fighting for the President's Trophy or first place in the conference. Like the next time they play, the stakes are going to be higher. And you even saw some of the physicality in both of the games that they've played. Like there was some animosity. Uh, Carlo, took a beating behind the net after one of the whistles in the third period. And obviously, Tom Wilson's still not 100%. He's got the cage on his face because his face is still broken or whatever. But, he's going to bring it in the final month of the season, the next time these two teams play. And maybe Ovechkin's, feeling back to 100% at that point as well. So certainly another battle coming when they play each other in April.
Yeah, and like obviously right now I'm not super concerned about that, but what I am concerned about is the Bruins special teams. Like they just can't get this fixed. And I know we brought up before, and Bridget, I think you brought this up like a week or two ago. Like the Bruins are a coach short right now on their staff, and you got to wonder, like, are they looking around at like, can we bring someone in to help with the power play?
They have to.
Like they should be. Yeah, I mean, it makes, if you're gonna bring anyone in, like that's the most obvious place that needs addressing, and I would think you should be able to find someone. I mean, you're at a spot right now here, like mid-season, where maybe you pluck someone away. I don't know who, I don't have anyone in mind, so I don't have a name for you. I don't know where they are, but this would be like the time of year where like someone might make a move like that, whether it's, leaving another staff somewhere, even at a different level of hockey. Like this might be someone from juniors or college. Like this is a time where there is like a little bit of resetting in the hockey world. You're kind of at like the mid-season point. You're just coming back from winter break for colleges. World Juniors always splits up the season for young players. So you are kind of at a spot here where it's like, okay, is there someone out there that we can go get right now to bring in and help? And you hope that there is, because the people they have in charge right now obviously aren't. Look, Joe Sacco and Chris Kelly have good intentions. Like I'm sure they see how much the power play is struggling, just like the rest of us. They know it's a problem. They're trying to fix it, but they can't. Like whether it's the X's and O's aren't good enough, or they're just not getting through to the players and not getting them to do what they need to do. Again, like to me, it's beyond X's and O's. Like the losing battles, the not skating, the just like losing focus and fumbling pucks away. It's like that's not X's and O's. Like that's just like something beyond that. That's just like a mental block that this team can't get through.
Yeah, they've been down a coach since mid-November, right? Third week of November, I think, right? That's when Monty got fired. So they've been down a coach on the bench, and the organization is well aware that they need the power play to get a boost. And it seems like yesterday they needed this to happen. Like this is something that's been an issue that they've known about. Obviously, the reason for waiting is to find the right person, right? But I think that they've had about a month and a half to kind of do some searching and to test the waters and see who's out there. And we're getting to the point where like, okay, well maybe they have a candidate in mind, or they should be at the part in the process where they're ready to kind of make a deal, like finish something up, bring someone in, because what they're missing compared to some of the other teams that they're in contention with in the playoffs in the East is the power play numbers. I mean, they're still 30th out of in the league on the power play in their percentage. So like that's obviously not good enough if you're a playoff team, which they are right now, and they could be more comfortably a playoff team if their power play gets going during the regular season and they put some points together in the standings to make it a little bit more comfortable for themselves. So this is an issue that if it's not resolved by the playoffs is going to be a huge factor in them, maybe not getting very far. And it's a factor of frustration. It's a confidence killer. And you know how much it's important to keep confidence in the playoffs. Different things can get you off your game, especially if they end up playing the Florida Panthers again. You need pretty much everything you can get going to put your confidence in the right direction. So power play is a must fix.
Yeah, you have to at least be able to break even on special teams, and they're not. So, like, I haven't looked at updated numbers. I can't imagine it's gotten any better, but as of the weekend when I wrote about it, they had the worst special teams net in the NHL, meaning total special teams goals scored minus special teams goals allowed. So it accounts for shorthanded and all that. And they are worse than the NHL. I think they were minus 15 special teams net. So and it's probably even gone down since then. I mean, they minus one on Tuesday. So yeah, like when your power play is not scoring at all, then it puts so much pressure on your penalty kill to be perfect, which we know the Bruins penalty kill has not been perfect this year, and it was not perfect on Tuesday. They did give up a power play goal to the Capitals, who, have a good numbers wise, they're middle of the pack. But we know, like, talent wise, that's a good power play that's had a lot of success before. In and of itself, like, there's no shame in giving up a power play goal against the Washington Capitals. Now, I don't like how they gave it up on Tuesday. Jacob Chikrin just had way too much room to kind of walk right down the right circle, and he has a great shot. And when you give him a head start to really kind of walk into one, like, yeah, you're taking your chances. Swayman got beat short side. Maybe you can say you'd like a save there, but I don't want him having the space to get that shot off in the first place. It is worth noting that it was Charlie McAvoy playing on the left side on that penalty kill because Nikita Zadorov went down with an injury and missed most of the first period. Looked like he got cut by Tom Wilson's skate. On the very first shift of the game, he got hit. Wilson's skate kind of came around, and you could see Zadorov clearly look down and grab his leg, and then he came back at the very end of the first period, but missed a lot of time in between. So Bruins didn't have the personnel out there that they would have liked, but still, Chikrin's a weapon. He has 11 goals as a defenseman this season. You gotta be aware of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the same numbers as Kel McCarr this year, and he's been an addition to that power play that's helped out quite a bit. So, a coach put it to me this way this week, actually, and I think it's a good way to think about your net special teams. If your power play percentage and your penalty kill percentage don't add up to about 100, you're not doing enough, right? So, you are 20% on the power play, 80% on the penalty kill. That adds to 100%, right? Well, the Bruins right now are 13% on the power play, 76% on the penalty kill, adds up to 89. That's nowhere good enough for your net special teams to be at, because that means you're giving up too many goals on the penalty kill and you're not scoring enough on the power play. So when you look at it that way, you want your team to be 98 to 102. That's a good range to look for, but the Bruins are just not there with their special teams on either side. And then when you put that together, you see how big the special teams disadvantage has been for them this year.
Yeah, and the only way you survive being underwater in special teams, first off, you don't get far at all if you're this far underwater. If you're a little bit underwater, then you need to dominate 5-on-5. And the Bruins have been a good 5-on-5 team, especially since Sacco took over. But they're not dominant because they just offensively don't have enough to score a lot of goals. Which is sort of, that's the other issue you see in this game. They were the better 5-on-5 team. I mean, looking at the numbers, 5-on-5 shot attempts in this game on Tuesday, 70 to 47 for the Bruins. High danger chances were closer, 13 to 10, but expected goals, they had 63%. Like that's a good 5-on-5 effort, but you end up breaking even 5-on-5 goals, 1-1. Because again, as I said, the Capitals blocked a ton of shots, 30 overall. I think 24 of those 30 blocks were at 5-on-5 play. So you do have to give a lot of credit to the Capitals, but I also think it highlights sort of the lack of offensive creativity on the Bruins team, or like lack of offensive creators, where it's like, yeah, a lot of that 5-on-5 play was sort of straightforward, like win the puck low, get it out high, shoot from the point, have bodies at the front. And it's like that. Look, that's a good strategy most of the time. Like that's a good way to get pucks to the net, get chances, create greasy goals. But when the other team is committed to blocking shots the way that the Capitals are, sometimes you need something else to get around that and to open things up a little. And that's what I think the Bruins are missing, where it's like, all right, you have David Pastrnak, who, when he's on his game, can do something else. Brad Marchand, maybe. But like other than that, like who else can go, I'm gonna say, like out of structure to create something? And it's really no one. Like that's where that's where like that this team's offensive limitations really get exposed. Is like if a team's gonna lock it down defensively like the Capitals did and commit to getting in shooting lanes, the Bruins don't really have another answer right now for how to get around that.
Yeah. And can we just talk about this too? Because this was the main thing we talked about last podcast, and this is what caused me all my anger in having to re-record and cut up and post the podcast part 1/part 2 after last game, which is that Fabian Lysell was not in the lineup tonight. I'm not saying he fixes those problems, but he does have an offensive-minded skill set. We had a text back and forth before the game about this. Just how he went down. Cole Koepke takes his spot on the third line. Scott, you commented to me, this is, because they're trying to make put together a more defensive lineup against a team, like the Capitals. But I just, when you see him go down and he's someone that can help offense, though defensively, obviously he has his liabilities, but and you see Koepke as the player that steps in. I'm not saying anything bad about Koepke. I like Koepke, but what's the need to take him off the fourth line to put him in a third line role when that is a spot where you could fit in someone maybe with a little bit more offense there. And just to like wrap up a few of the loose ends from last podcast, like we said, maybe we thought it wasn't a paper transaction, but there were people tweeting at us, oh, I think it's a paper transaction. He's gonna, he's not even gonna go anywhere. No, the Bruins, it was a real transaction, as indicated by, it being a press release rather than just not touched at all. And so he goes down, he's back with Providence, and doesn't play against the Capitals. So it was real. And I just thought that it was, when you look at what the lineup was like in Columbus and then to Washington, it didn't feel like it was so significant that you needed to send him down so fast. Like, I feel like the opportunity was still there for him to stick with the team. And if the argument was they wanted him to be able, like, a more defensive lineup and what have you, but I don't know how much good it did to just move Koepke up one spot, put McLaughlin in. Like, I don't know how much of a difference that made. I will say the third line did play pretty well. But I don't think that was like, because Koepke's on it. It actually seemed like the effort from Frederic and Brazeau was higher against Washington. And I don't know what you thought about that third line. And we did get a question about Lysell too. So we're going to answer a few mailbags here.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we're all on the same page that like we would have given Lysell another game. We all said that. The irony, however, is that I also thought this was the best that the Bruins' third line has looked in a couple weeks. I thought the Koepke, Frederic, Brazeau line had a good game Tuesday. Like they're very far down on my list of problems. Brazeau scores again on his first shift of the game. Now it's a lucky bounce, but he finishes it off. I thought that line created some chances. They had one really bad shift where they committed a couple turnovers and got pinned in their own zone for like over a minute. And we're lucky to survive without giving up a goal. And I know Brian tweeted that shift out as like an example of Frederick not having confidence because he had two of those turnovers. And I wish he was on so he could elaborate on it. But to me, that was the exception to the rule on Tuesday because I actually thought that line played well for the most part. And I thought Trent Frederick played well for the most part. Not perfect, but better than what we've seen from him recently. So, yeah, look, I mean, Sacco basically said he said, Washington's a different team, so we're going with a different lineup. And obviously what he means by that is they're one of the best offensive teams, so they wanted more defensive security, which, obviously Fabian Lysell does not really provide right now. And also Washington's a bigger team and a more physical team. And I think they're probably worried how he holds up against that. So I get their reasoning. I still would have liked to have given him another game. But that said, like, yes, he could have brought more offensive creativity, but it's not like we really saw that even on Saturday. Like, again, we said it, but like 0 shot attempts from him. So it's not like he was creating a ton in that game. And I just didn't think that line was a problem. I'll keep coming back to, like, I didn't really think anything 5-on-5 was a problem. I thought the Bruins played a good game. They're limited. And sure, Lysell maybe creates something, but maybe that line gets pinned in their own zone and they don't even have a chance to get into the offensive zone. Obviously we don't know because we didn't see it. So
no. And is there a chance that Tom Wilson just like tries to take his head off? Of course. Yeah. That's something that you can't put past him. And being smaller and being a rookie, like, guys have targets, especially if they're not expecting a Tom Wilson hit because they've never played against a guy like that before. But either way, still just disappointed in the way that it played out. And maybe he gets back up in January. Remains to be seen. We got a few questions about other potential call-ups because Poitras is also playing really well down in Providence. I also had someone tweet at me that they think that maybe Lysell and Poitras are better in Providence the whole year, which maybe they are, but I think the Bruins aren't better with them there the whole year. So especially if they're still kind of having the issues with depth scoring. So yeah, I'd like to see him back up just for the main reason being, like, he deserves another chance. And if you're the Bruins, you could potentially use a little bit of extra offense. It would not hurt you. So yeah, did you want to get to the mailbag or do you have any final thoughts on the game first?
Yeah, so I guess just my one last thought is, I would actually lean, like what we're talking about, I would lean more towards bringing Poitras back. Like I'm talking about, like, trying to unlock something 5-on-5 offensively. Like, I think Poitras probably is more likely to do that than Lysell. Whereas like Lysell, it almost would have to be like off the rush where he's going to use his speed to do something. But those opportunities just don't present themselves a ton in the NHL, where you're getting out into open ice. I think more what I'm talking about is, like, in this kind of congested game that Tuesday turned into and the offensive zone, like, who has like the wherewithal, the vision, the quick little moves in the offensive zone to open something up. And I think Poitras actually does. Lysell, I'm not sure about because I don't think I've really seen that from him, like in training camp or preseason games. Like, I don't know if he can break down a layered defense in the offensive zone, whereas I think Poitras can. So in that respect, like, if we're talking about who I'd want to see brought up to try to address that problem, I would actually go Poitras there.
Yeah, I think Poitras, we've talked about his playmaking ability. He has good vision. He's good at finding passes to open guys. We spent plenty of time. It's been a while since, because he hasn't been up for a while, but in the beginning parts of the season, talking about, oh, maybe he's the kind of guy who could set up Pasta to get him going. Like, there's a lot of conversation about like who to match him with because of his playmaking ability that he has. So yeah, I think Poitras, you're better off with Poitras than you are with Wahlstrom. You're if Wahlstrom was a scratch again. So I'm not sure what the future is for him in Boston, but Poitras or Lysell. The reason why we were talking about, maybe Lysell sticking around was because he got the call up. So when you first think of it, it's like, oh, maybe they liked him better than Poitras, or like maybe they were in need of him more than they were in need of Poitras. But now, like looking back on it, it kind of just feels like hey, your family's here, come up, just here's a nice moment, rather than actual for trying to solve a long-term issue or like a need that they're dealing with. So I wouldn't mind seeing Poitras come back up either. I can this is what all of the mailbag questions are on. If you want me to read one of them, we can answer it.
Sure.
So let's do, we want to go with Mark first. I'm gonna read Mark's first because he gave us a compliment despite me having a breakdown on the last podcast. He says, looks like Lysell was indeed sent down to Providence as not just a paper transaction, so at least you don't have to record version 3 of the podcast. As an avid listener, though, I did want to say that I appreciate the effort all of you put into the podcast when it comes to trying to adjust for breaking Boston news. Yeah, we've had to. He says, here's his first question. Some questions about the third line and Trent Frederic for the January podcast. At this point, I do think you have to sit Frederic with the hope that it might light a fire under his ass and get him going. However, if they sit him, would it make negotiations with Sweeney more contentious if the Bees are planning to keep him? And if they're trying to trade him, wouldn't it lower his trade value even more?
So I don't really think so. Because again, I think if you were to sit Frederic, the conversation you have with him, and I brought this up in the last podcast, is like, hey, look how Morgan Geekie responded to being a healthy scratch early in the year and how he got his season back on track. Look at how Justin Brazeau responded after being a healthy scratch. Like, we're doing this because we want you to take a step back and reset, and then we want you to go in and play your ass off. And like, as long as it's communicated the right way, I don't think it creates friction between Frederic and the front office when it comes to potential negotiations or whatever. And I don't really think it hurts his trade. Like, his trade value is getting hurt by his play this season. I think any team that's looking at him or potentially talking to Sweeney about a trade is going to understand, like, oh, he's not being healthy scratch because he's, not an NHL caliber player. He's being healthy scratch because the Bruins want more from him. Like, like I think teams get that. Now, like, listen, do they maybe try to use against Sweeney and be like, hey, we just saw that like you healthy scratched him, does that lower the price? Like, maybe you try that, but like, I think every GM is smart enough to know like that's just not how it works.
No, I mean, that'd be like a complete insult to his intelligence. Like, obviously, we both know that's not what happened. So
yeah, it's not like they're not gonna healthy scratch him. Then Don Sweeney's gonna be like, well, I guess I'll just take a 4th round pick for him. Like, no, like they're gonna continue to negotiate. And and Sweeney's obviously he would hope that Frederic goes back in, plays better, and now like there's zero effect on his value. If anything, maybe that helps his value bounce back a little.
So part 2 of this question is, if Sweeney decides that he does want to trade Frederic, do you think he pulls the trigger soon, or does it go right to the trade deadline?
So I've kind of been on team like wait this out, and there's no real reason to rush it, unless you get blown away, unless someone wants to give you 1st round pick plus. whether that's a good prospect or it's part of a package for an offensive upgrade. Like if that deal's out there, then I pull the trigger whenever I can find it. But if it's not, no, I'm not. Like you're not at a hey, give me your final bids. We're trading him next week. Like you're not. You don't have to do that. You can wait this out. You can see if his value goes up. You can see if anything changes in contract talks. You can see if some new team jumps in that hasn't really reached out about him yet, but maybe a month from now they feel like they have a need for a Trent Fredericks. So I'm mostly team wait this out and see how things look closer to the deadline. With the caveat that if someone wants to blow you away, take it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a hockey trade. Like the Bruins have to be involved in a hockey trade for Frederick because just taking a draft pick does not help them this year. Like if picks are involved, if it's like a bigger deal where there's multiple players and there's picks and there's, different assets going either way, then yeah, like maybe you get a pick back. But what they would want to do with Frederick as a trade piece would be get something that they need in return for a playoff run. And that would involve, trading him for somebody they can add to their roster right away and can make them a better team. And also, I feel like Frederick's trade value goes up the closer you get to the playoffs, if that makes sense. Because if a team is looking to add maybe somebody that adds a little bit of snarl, they might not have a whole lot of options if they're feeling like they need a player like that, like that's available because there are other guys in the league like this, yes, but Frederick's in a situation where he's on an expiring contract. So, and there's other teams in the league that are looking to hold on to those guys. So, and maybe the Bruins are one of those teams. Maybe they value some of the stuff he can bring in the playoffs. They say we're going to wait it out and hope that he does this for us in the playoffs. So, yeah, I don't think there's a reason to pull the trigger right now. He could get playing better, or maybe he has a gear in the playoffs where he can be a pest. But the problem is that we haven't seen it this season. We've seen it in the past, but the same way that Bruins fans and management hasn't seen what they want to from Frederick this year, everybody else in the league that's trying to make these decisions has seen it too. So unfortunately, yeah, the trade value is down from where it would have been last year. And maybe for that reason, you don't get an offer you like and he's with you through the playoffs. And then you have to figure out the contract situation, whether or not you want to keep him in the off season. So those are my thoughts on Frederick, where things stand right now. Another part of this question says, knowing the Bees, there's no way they'll ever try out a line with Merkulov, Poitras, and Lysell. However, if Freddie goes, could you see a third line being Merkulov, Poitras, and either Brazeau, Wahlstrom, or Kastelik? I know that leaves Lysell the odd man out, but Merkulov and Poitras have consistently played together on the same line in Providence and have developed chemistry there. So right now I would put Poitras and Merk together rather than Poitras and Lysell together. So this is an idea of obviously calling up two guys from Providence. Scott, what do you think the likelihood is that they would call up both of those guys? I know we've talked about limited roster space, which to me makes it feel like that brings the chances down that they both get called up. But obviously, if this is assuming Frederick is traded, so you would need to move someone in there. I'm guessing that's the premise of why both would be on the third line.
Yeah, if Frederick gets traded, I think it's definitely possible. As Mark pointed out, like they have been on the same line in Providence and they've been playing well together. And if you trade Frederick, you need a left wing. You would be short. You're already kind of short left wings, but like at least Morgan Geekie has found his game on the offside. They tried Justin Brazeau at left wing. I don't really think that went very well. Some guys can do it, some guys can't. You don't really know until you try it. Maybe Brazeau would get better if he goes back there. But Merkulov, they played him at left wing when they called him up earlier this season, even though he had only played center in Providence to that point. But now he has been playing left wing with Poitras at center. So yeah, I think you could definitely see see like that kind of 2-for-1 move in terms of call-ups. Like, and I also do think Mark's right that they would not try a Merkulov, Poitras, Lysell altogether. Like that just it would be too small and too much of a defensive liability at the NHL level.
Yeah, and inexperienced at the NHL level. So especially as the playoffs near, like we're talking about the second half of the season now, that this would have to happen because we're at the new year. So it would that just be the Providence line, essentially, which I don't see that being a risk that Sweeney would be willing to take. With
It would be like the most un-Bruins thing they have done
would.
in a very long time.
It would be something that you could do if you, at this point in the season, things didn't get better after Montgomery left, like, and they just tanked, and like this was like, okay, well, we're not making the playoffs. Let's, then maybe, but they're in a playoff position right now, and it's uncharacteristic. Final part of this email from Mark says, hopefully Poitras will be brought back up at some point to play third line center. So is one of the objectives with the Bruins trying to build chemistry with Merkulov in Providence so that they can come up as a tandem, assuming Freddie is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just touched on that, so I don't really think we need to go any further. I will say, Mark ended this by saying, doubt Sweeney would think that far ahead, though. Look, I know everyone likes to rip Don Sweeney. I promise you he is thinking ahead, and that is probably part of the reason that those guys are playing together. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, listen, I don't want to be the Don Sweeney defender, but like, give him a little bit of credit. Did they do think about the big picture?
Yes. Yeah. They obviously that's why Merkulov went from playing center to playing wing is because like the fit for him in Boston would be on the left side. So yes, that was definitely an intentional long-term move to just try to get him experience where he would actually be able to help the Bruins. So I'm gonna go to Liz's questions. So she says, hope you have a happy holiday. Question number one, what do you all think is the reason behind the Lysell call-up? I know Lysell had one great game the night before in Providence, but quite frankly, Merkulov has been on fire at wing since he's been paired with Poitras at center. I would have thought Merkulov would have been next up if you're looking for a winger. He's made the transition to wing rather effectively. Or is Sweeney finally trying to find out what he's got in Lysell to possibly package him in the future for a trade? And she mentions like maybe package him with Frederick, but go first of all, I guess, with the reason for the call up part.
So I do think part of this was like player management, like organizational management, where Lysell has not made his NHL debut. He's been playing well, and his family is in town for the holidays and able to watch. I think that all factored in. And again, I've seen people on Twitter be like, "There's no way like Sweeney considered his family being in town." I actually think the Bruins did consider that. Like, I think this was not the only reason, but like, I think part of it was like, this is a good move to make for Fabian Lysell here in the middle of the season. Like, give him this reward, get him a taste, get him his debut, let his family see it, and then send him back down with a message of what he has to keep working on. Again, like we can debate whether that's the right way to go about things, and does it lose meaning when it's only one game? Should it have been more? We all think it should have. But that was part of it. Was like, I think they felt like Fabian Lysell had done enough to earn one game, to earn his NHL debut, which obviously Poitras and Merkulov have already had. So they saw an opening to get Lysell up and get him in a game, and so they took it.
To make a reference, to make a comparison, like it's gonna be like when you go on a first date and you think like, oh my god, this went so well, like this one, wow, we're gonna get a second date out of this, and then all of a sudden the person's like, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to just be friends for now. And now he's back in Providence, and he's back with the old team, and it's disappointing. It's a disappointing feeling.
Did they give you did those first dates give you like a list of things you have to work on before you
Yeah,
get a
they're like,
second date?
maybe next time you come back, just like try to be a little bit less annoying. Like just tone down the talk about hockey just a little bit. And yeah, no. Normally I'm the one who says, I don't think we're getting a second date. But anyway, sorry for the stupid dating.
My dates keep saying I talk about popcorn too much. I don't know what
That
that's
makes
about.
sense. But then you don't want them anyway, right?
Uh,
My last first date that I went on did not end in a second date because I said I didn't think I wanted kids, and the guy said to me, "Oh, that's unfortunate." And I said, "For who?"
well, look, but like that, I mean, good to get that out there
I know.
early, I guess, right?
When he said that's unfortunate, he looked at me like it was unfortunate for me, like I was like I made a mistake or something. I was like, okay, whatever. That was it. That was how that date ended. Anyway, that's not where this mailbag is from. Yeah, but this mailbag actually, we had a question from my ex. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was gonna say if anyone wants to send dating questions to Bridget,
We will get them, Scott. If you say that, we will. We will get them. We'll do a Valentine's Day episode.
there we go. Perfect. Already planned.
All right. Part 2 of Liz's question. Lysell was immediately put onto power play 1, and when Merkulov was brought up a few weeks ago, he was put on power play 2. Before Poitras was sent down, he'd not been given that chance, and we were repeatedly told that he had to earn it. These guys are given the chance to be on the power play after one game in the show, and Poitras unbelievably was not given the same chance as one of their best players at the time. Why is that? Is it because Monty is now gone and Saka was willing to give young players more of a chance?
So I actually think the unit that Lysell was on, I would probably call the second unit. Again, that was the first game that they split them up, but he was not on the same unit as Pasternak, and to me, whatever unit Pasternak's on is the top unit. Secondly, so to me, like that's kind of equal to what Merkulov got. Like Merkulov did get looked at on the second unit, and Poitras did get a little bit of power play time early in the season, and I think the issue there is Montgomery didn't like what he saw. I think he felt like Poitras hung onto pucks too long, and the puck sort of died on his stick, or movement slowed down, and they wanted Poitras moving his feet more and moving the puck quicker. And again, like I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've seen every game he's played in Providence, so you would hope that he's working on that, though. So when he gets back up, maybe he can be used more in the power play. But look, I think like any criticism of the power play, though, or personnel is extremely fair right now because it sucks. And, it's like, I can sit here and tell you, like, oh, I don't know if Lysell or Poitras solves the power play, but it's like nothing else is either. So, you might as well give someone a shot who hasn't gotten much of a look there. But yeah, I mean, Lysell, it was like very limited time on the power plays. So again, I don't really think you got to see like whether he's actually going to be able to make much of a difference there. If he comes back up, maybe he gets a longer look. If Poitras comes back up, maybe he does. But yeah, it's as good. Well, I shouldn't say it's as good a reason as any, but it is part of the reason why we talk about, bringing one of those guys up, because you need something on the power play. Like you need to do something.
Yeah, I have the feeling though that if Poitras comes back up in the next few weeks, like I'm not sure he goes right to the power play again. Like just because if you think about, I'm not saying that he shouldn't, but like if you think about who he would come in for, like he'd probably be better than Frederick there, but depending on the role, like he's a smaller guy. Like if you're not going to replace certain guys on the power play with Poitras because net front's not really his thing. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him get time if he comes back up. I'd just like to see him back up. Like if we're talking about rewarding players for a good play, and that being why Lysell came up, like Poitras is playing well enough to get a reward at this point. Would he go right to the power play? I don't know, but their power play needs help, like we just talked about in the first part of this podcast. So they don't have a lot of internal fixes. It seems like they've tried a lot of different things that they currently have. So maybe Poitras coming from Providence could help. So thank you, Liz, for sending those questions. We got one more email from Kim, and hers is about the waiver situation. And I think there's definitely a lot of confusion about NHL waivers. Even we have to look it up a lot sometimes when we're like going back through, especially like when it comes to how old you are versus how many, like how long for you to lose waiver eligibility, whatnot. So I'll just read her question. She says, done some research, but I'm confused and hope you can clear up the waiver situation for me. With all the players that are coming and going between Providence and Boston and the new players, I'm trying to figure out who would have to clear waivers and why. Not sure if two-way contracts impact this or who the 10-game NHL threshold applies to either. Can you explain the situation for the following players? And the first two she asks are Beecher and Laurai. They've both played enough NHL games, so now that they would have to clear waivers. So that's, yes, they've played enough NHL games. That one seems like most people seem to understand that one. Poitras, he played 14 games before being sent down. He's on a two-way contract. He's a total of 47 games played for the Bruins. Would he have to clear waivers if he came back up and then they wanted to send him down, is the question.
He would not. So because Matt Poitras is only 20 years old, he's not going to require waivers until he gets to 160 games played. Next year as a 21-year-old, it would drop to 80 career games. So at some point next season, he may hit that threshold where he would then need waivers. But you don't have to worry about that this year. The simplest way, looking at the Bruins' current roster, to put it right now, is that everyone on the active roster as of Tuesday afternoon when we're recording would need to go on waivers to get sent down. No, they don't have anyone right now who's exempt. Fabian Lysell obviously could go up and down. Again, he's young enough, has not played enough NHL games. That's not an issue you're going to have to worry about this year or probably even next year, honestly. Other guys in Providence like haven't come up yet. You don't have to worry about. Merkulov has not played enough NHL games. The interesting one that just happened was Mark McLaughlin, because of his age, he required waivers before the season to get sent down. He cleared waivers, went down. Once he came back up. So the 10 games thing, that applies to any player who cleared waivers to get sent down. If they come back up and hit 10 games or 30 days on the roster, they would need to clear waivers again. So, like, if you're looking at Providence, that would also apply to guys like Max Jones, who needed to clear waivers to get sent down, Riley Tufte. Patrick Brown might still be exempt because I don't think he's come back up for 10 games. Same
How
with
old is he? Wait, how old is he?
Patrick Brown's in his 30s. But
So
he already cleared waivers before the season, and I don't think he has not played 10 games this year, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, that's the 10 games thing. Like, that's where that comes from. Was there another situation in here? I feel like there's something else I wanted to address.
I think she just asked.
Wall Street. So I think I was slightly off explaining Oliver Wahlstrom situation before. So I did get clarification on this. So Wahlstrom, if the Bruins wanted to send Wahlstrom down, he would have to go on waivers. And I thought there's like some component like that benefited the Islanders there. What it actually is like every team has a chance to claim him in order. Where the Islanders would be unique is if they were the only team to claim him, they could then send him straight to the AHL without putting him back on waivers. But anyone else could also put in a claim on him. So the Bruins, they can't do anything there. The only way they could ever send Wahlstrom to Providence is if they put him on waivers and no one claimed him.
Yeah. Which could, I mean, they could put him on waivers between us. We're not going to re-record for that, by the way. Not for that.
I'm all ready for the 11:45 New Year's Eve recording.
Yeah, when I've already had a few hard seltzers and I'm at my friend's house and enjoying my night. Not going to re-record for that. So yeah, that was all of our mailbag questions. So thank you to, I mean, we once again weren't planning on doing one, but thank you to Mark, Kim, and Liz for sending those in. I do want to have like a kind of like a fun mailbag one that's like not even necessarily all hockey related, or like kind of like more of like a storytelling episode. Like, what's your like favorite story that you've had since you were, started being a reporter? Like, what are some weird stories that have happened on the job or stuff like that that just, obviously it's not just X's and O's Bruins talk. Like, we've all had in this business times where we're just sitting somewhere going, how did I get here right now? Like, how? Like, what just happened? So I know we all have those stories. I want to like set aside time for that. I don't know if that's an off-season idea or we sprinkle stuff in throughout the season, but and I'm okay with answering your dating questions on a Valentine's Day episode. I don't know if I can help you guys because I don't know if I can. I can give advice, but what to do if the guy that you're dating or girl that you're dating doesn't like the Bruins or doesn't like hockey? I can't help you there. I don't really even know.
Yeah, I'm on board for like anything kind of off the rails.
I'm all for off.
I dropped my favorite movies of 2024 list earlier Tuesday, so movie talk I'm always down for.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, Anora, by the way.
Put the popcorn talk up there too.
By the way, I don't know if it's just because we have like a little more space because it's just two of us, but you can see my Scott's Pops thing.
Yeah, and you can see mine too. It's right here. I made Scott's Pops pucks. We'll wait to see what 2025 holds, what kind of stickers I come up with then, and or other merchandise, which I wish I could sell, but the process of me making stuff with my hands is just, it's not fast enough. No, I'd be able to make like 3 a day.
Yeah, you need like some sort of like mass production system.
I know. I don't have the money.
Bridget is very good at handcrafting stuff.
I am good. Wait, where's the? I don't know where I put the ornament. It was on here earlier. I made Scott a Scott's Pops Christmas ornament, but I can't see it.
I think I held that up on one of the pods.
Yeah.
I saw my tree up. I can't get
the stickers and okay, go get it. It took me 45 minutes to add Scott's name to this ornament because my Cricut wasn't working. There it is. There it is. It's beautiful. It's really hard to see. You can't see it because the lighting. Anyway, in person, it looks magnificent. It's got some gold balls in it.
Kind of has like a little bit of a glare.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's wonderful. I gotta get some like headshots of you, Scott, so that I can like have other pictures to use in terms of making your face into stuff. Because it's been the same.
No, I really don't think we need to do that.
Like, it's been this same face this whole time, but like maybe I'll get another picture of you at some point. Get a nice.
I still have some hair in that picture, so
a little bit,
made it updated.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
What was that from? Like 3 years ago? Yeah. All right. We went off the rails enough here today. And
see what happens when there's no Brian.
Yeah. And Brian gets us off the rails too. He would be probably going to be upset that we went off the rails without him. So the upcoming schedule for the Bruins, Thursday, January 2nd, they're playing at Madison Square Garden against the Rangers. They have next game on the following game on Saturday, January 4th against Toronto. And then they come home for games against the Islanders the 5th, and the Oilers on the 7th. And then we don't need to get too far past that. But starting off the January schedule with the Rangers is a bit weird. But then you play Toronto, which feels like they haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah, and we'll do a Friday episode after that Rangers game, and then the 2-game weekend our Monday episode will have the Leafs game and the Islanders game to react to.
Yep. And yeah, so happy 2025 to everyone. Good luck. Best of luck to everyone in the new year. I don't know. Do you have any resolutions? I personally don't make resolutions. I don't know about you. I just kind of try to adjust my life as it comes.
Yeah, I stopped doing that a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, looking forward to some vacations. I'll say that.
Don't set any expectations, and you'll never be disappointed.
Great advice, Scott. Looking forward to playing tennis again. Finally, I'm going to be cleared to play in May after my ACL surgery. So it's been years since I played tennis. So that's good. That's a plus. All right, yeah, that's it. I ain't got nothing for resolutions.
No, I'm done.
So we will say Happy New Year, and we will talk to you then.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.